7 seconds. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Engage Educator Show. Please forgive our tardiness for starting the show today. Technology is amazing when it works, and then when it don't work, it don't work. But we are so excited to be here with you today. My guest is a sister from another mister. I first heard her voice and her story while listening to the 8 Black Hands podcast. And after that, I started following her on all social media networks. And then we connected actually at the convening for the National Parents Union. And then ever since then, like, she has just been there for me to help me to advocate for families, advocate for students, and just their rights, what is naturally and organically theirs to take hold of. So I'm excited that she's here with me today. She is among the best of the best. She has a wealth of knowledge, and I'm hoping that a lot of your questions are answered on today. So please join me in welcoming Christina Laster to the show.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me out here on West Coast time. So
right.
I'm just glad to be here, and that fresh in the morning brain is super.
Listen, and I failed to mention that, guys. So she is 3 hours ahead of me. So it's new morning sun for her. So I'm definitely excited that you are joining me on today. We thought, we pretty much talk all the time anyway. But this one is just like a conversation for everybody to hear, because there are just a lot of questions that families and parents have. There are, of course, anxieties. There are a lot of feelings. There are a lot of frustrations, and there are just a lot of things that families need. And I wanted them to get a very organic and a very genuine response to their questions, right? Nothing watered down, nothing to kind of coddle them a cushion and make them feel better, but really organic conversations and answers from 2 individuals, myself and you, that will really just keep it 100, keep it honest, and it'll come from a place of we want to see you guys win. So that's
right. And I think it helps for people to know my background in this, and why you should probably listen and take heed, right? I am a civil rights activist and humanitarian. I have been fighting for education. I've been advocating in education for quite some time. I have been looking at ways that disparities have affected marginalized communities, and what is that achievement gap all about, right? Especially we're talking about Black student achievement. Like, is it really the deficit's not in our kids, not in us as parents? We see some things and we don't know exactly what that means, right? Working for special education, being educated myself, getting higher education and, a master's degree, and then looking at ways to break that generational and perpetual cycle of what we see. And so, I've been doing this for quite some time. I previously, and excuse me, y'all pray for my voice. Previously was education chair with the NAACP out here in California. Went, on to work for, a policy center out here in California Policy Center, looking at doing the same thing. And now am a National Parents Union advisor and delegate. So I'm so happy to be able to support the authentic voice of parents during this time and their needs, especially, as we support our children so that they thrive.
Right. Absolutely. And I was going to give you an opportunity to do all of that after our game, but that's okay. You went ahead and got it out.
I'm taking over the show. It's early.
But guys, so if you watch the show, right, you know that I like my guests to get nice and cozy and comfortable. So we break the ice with song association, because I personally feel like music is universal, right? And it connects us in such a way that nothing else can. So I like to start with this just to, loosen it up and to connect us, because somebody may be listening and they be like, oh yeah, that's my song, that's my jam too. And it just allows us to make that quick connection without it being so formal. So
Right.
Song association is underway. My highest achieving score is 9. So I give you 10 words. You have 10 seconds to either sing or rap a song with that word in it. And I'm gonna tell y'all how high class Christina is, right? So I send out my little survey and I'm just like, guys, tell me your favorite song and artist so I can listen to it and like pull words. She sends me Beethoven. I'm like, okay, you're high class. There's nothing I can really do with Beethoven. So I'm gonna just think about her personality and songs that she may listen to, and I'm gonna pull words from that. Okay. So Sis sent me Beethoven, and there was absolutely nothing I could do with that for this game. So your words are
I hear words when I listen to Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. They might be my own, but
right. So with that said, we're going to start with your first word. You're going to have 10 seconds to sing or rap. And it's not American Idol or The Four or The Voice. So, you don't have to feel like you got to shine. Okay.
All right.
All right. First word. She.
She power. She winning. She's educated.
What is that?
I think I'm rapping, but you know me, I'm kind of, gotta figure it out.
It must be a song that people know.
Oh,
not original. Oh, that was your freestyle.
Yes. That's what radicals do, right? We freestyle it.
I'll give you 10 seconds to give me a Billboard song. Not a freestyle. 5 seconds.
I don't know. Boo. Can we do Family Feud?
No. Say it.
Ooh. Y'all could tell I don't listen to music with words very much, huh?
5 seconds.
You
don't listen to songs with no words?
Yeah, I usually make my own, I dance to the rhythm of my own drum.
I have to do like an instrumental one for the next time you come. But for now, this is all right. This is it. What about?
Sorry, y'all. Look, if you. Man, I'm not really fun with this. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm trying to figure it out. Let's see.
Nursery rhymes.
I can't even associate. My brain doesn't even associate any
about a vehicle
songs with words.
That's sometimes yellow, and kids can get on it.
Oh, the wheels on the bus.
There we go.
Go round and round, round and round. Thank you.
What about
I like big butts, and I cannot lie. Now y'all got me started.
You gotta get your point. You gotta get your point. Okay? All right, 4.
4 little monkeys jumping on the bed.
One
fell off and bumped his head.
All right, girl. You're not a Destiny Child fan at all? No.
Nothing is coming to me.
I could tell you, man, crying and you need somebody. Tired.
So, do you know a gospel song with "girl" in it? I remember some gospel songs with.
Yeah, Mary, Mary.
Okay.
What's the song? It goes, But it has little girl, little girl.
Yes, that I remember that
one. But I'm not playing the game for you. Focus.
That's Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata.
Love.
In
3 seconds.
Oh, the reckless love of God. That's a good one. You know, I like that song. You should listen to that song.
I will listen to that. People.
Didn't We Are the World have people in it? Now I'm saying my age, y'all. Okay.
We are the world. We are the children.
There had to be people somewhere in that song.
It had to be. All right.
Okay, or we could say everyday people. I think what John Legend wrote a song.
Ordinary people.
See.
Change.
Change me, oh God.
Make me more like you.
Yes.
All right, honey. You have a raving 5 points out of 10.
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me.
It got 50%, but look, that's okay. That is okay. Right. It's just teaching me. I'm gonna have to differentiate my instruction for you. Right. I have to do what instrumental is. Yes. And what Beethoven number is this? That's what we're gonna do for you next time. Okay.
That would work out.
I have learned. I'm an educator. I have had a conversation with you, and based on that, I'm going to pivot my. All right.
And and I don't want nobody to think I'm boring, because we're going to have to talk about this later.
Oh God. It's okay. It's okay.
That's cute, though. I appreciate it.
There's been other people with 5 out of 10, so don't feel too bad.
Okay? Oh, that's great.
Don't be down. Don't be down on yourself. All right, so here we go. So before we get started, I want to say that they're having the memorial for the congressman today, Congressman John Lewis, which I saw on Facebook. And I feel like this episode can be a little bit of good trouble in his memory, in his honor. Oh, yeah. So we're going to get into the actual show and the conversations that need to happen. And the question that I've been getting most from parents is, how can I best meet the needs of my child learning at home? So let's dive into that first.
What I want to say is, now that everyone is suddenly learning from home, doesn't mean that there were suddenly these gaps, right, that we saw. These things were existing prior to school closures. You just didn't know them because you were sending your kid to school every day. Mm-hmm. And you had this traditional thought process that if I send my kid to the traditional local school, mm-hmm. they're going to be learning all of these different things, right? And so it wasn't really until parents actually started, all suddenly schooling from home that they started seeing the deficits look a little different.
Right.
What do I mean by that? Well, some of it was that, wow, did my kid even learn any of this at school? Mm-hmm. Because it seems foreign to them, mm-hmm. right? Some of it was, my child is a child of special needs and needs services and supports that are not being given or delivered, right? And then I had a group of parents who their children are high achieving and they were still not serviced very well, right? They are bored and they don't have anything to do. Mm-hmm. And, they're sitting there basically self-teaching concepts that the teacher had not introduced before. Mm-hmm. So we have this wide, vast array. And what I tell parents is, when you're educating your child from home, don't try to bring the education system as you know it into your house. Mm-hmm. You're not trying to model that. Mm-hmm. You don't want to make your house like the traditional local school or wherever your child was going, because they are in the home, right? When you go to your bedroom, you know it's time to sleep, right? The children are used to associating the fact that they're in the home as this is my comfort zone, this is my sanctuary space, this is something else. So, me being a more seasoned homeschooler, I have designated areas that I use for specifically for education, right? And then also just knowing that we're not following traditional calendars, because what is that? Who created that traditional calendar that says by the time I'm 15 or 16, this has to happen. By the time I'm 18, this has to happen. And when I took away those traditional calendars, timetables, and guidelines that society teaches you as norms, and set a new standards in my house, set locations, I was able to help my children thrive better, because those anxieties, those pressures, those guidelines, those timetables, all of that was set by me. And so, not trying to copy or mimic the traditional platform is going to relieve some of your pressures. Okay. Once you have established that's what you're going to do, and you're going to set those values, you're going to set the tone in your home around learning, then you set your expectations. What is our day going to look like? Are we going to do math and science Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Are we going to do it every day? Are we going to do Tuesdays and Thursdays? And if your child is still subscribed to the traditional school system, looking at what is being given to you, and trying to adjust your calendar accordingly, and then rejecting something that you just don't feel comfortable. Right? There's a lot that could be said about.
Right, right. And I think it's so important that you said, hold on to, use what you need, reject what you don't. Because
Right.
a lot of families now, and it was like, it's so much. I have so many links. I have so many programs. I have so many things that they're saying, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. And this is what you need to do for XYZ. But at the end of the day, you can't decide. And it's different for us as parents,
Right.
because we are used to, okay, this is the assignment for your child. This is the content that they're covering this week. This is the day that they're going to have their quiz. And we're used to just taking it and working with it, and not questioning, what am I getting? Is my child ready to move on? And moving on to the piece where you're talking about, okay, the special needs families, the children that were receiving services at school. Talk a little bit to the parents that have children that have IEPs, that have 504 plans, that were receiving those accommodations, but now that they're home, they're not, and then moving into the fall, they haven't heard anything at all about what their child's IEP is going to look like, what that 504 plan is going to look like. And I'll just say, personally, as a special needs mom, when my child came home in March, I didn't hear anything about her accommodations. She had, math instruction, because she was a year or so behind in math, and we didn't hear anything about and I think I left out for a second. StreamYard does that to me sometimes. But we didn't hear anything about those accommodations. Like, she didn't have them anymore. And now myself and parents that have children on IEPs, 504s, different medications, different, arranged seating, all of those things, they're not in our house. So what do we do?
Right. And I've worked with a range of special education students, from moderate to severe to whatever they classify these students as, right? And so here's what I would say. Just because we have school closures doesn't legally give the right for your services supports to be denied. As a matter of fact, the federal government has stated that is a violation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So nobody was supposed to be pulling back on supporting and servicing IEP and 504 students. What was supposed to take place was delineating what that was supposed to look like to the families. I would say that if your child has an IEP or 504, you need to write your case carrier and the district's, whoever the director of special education is, if there is one, also the principal and the superintendent immediately, and say that you feel like your child has not been serviced, their IEP, you feel like your child has not, your 504 has not been accommodated. You need to know how they are planning to provide the services and supports. Can those items be contracted out with, outside of the district and what they offer? And how can you get those contracted immediately? Also, what are they going to do to bridge that deficit of services and supports that had not been provided during the time they were supposed to be doing? What are they planning? And you want to know, how are they going to meet each goal? Period. If your child has 10 goals, ask, what are you planning to do for this one, this one, this one? You know, how are you going to bridge the deficit from the time that there was nothing provided? Can that be contracted out? And you don't got to pick from their list, just to let you know. And also, when is your annual or triannual or whatever that may look like in your household? What is that going to look like? Can you do an addendum? Because school closure creates an environment where you are the formal and primary educator of your child.
Right.
Can you do an addendum to your 504? Can you do an emergency addendum to your IEP and make sure that certain things are provided in that? If you do not get a response, I suggest you either look for an advocate, lawyer, or send your complaint to OCR, because they're not supposed to pull back or stop special education services. However, in the meantime of getting what you need for your child, I want you to understand that you can also go to your medical professional, your through the healthcare system. Like my grandson, he was receiving services through Easter Seals, right? That came directly from the medical professionals because we didn't want a gap of time for his services and support. Right. So while you're asking for your services and supports and accommodations to be met and mandating that they do so because it's by law, you also should be looking outside of that realm to find out what you can do so that you can take back control of your own child's education, right? They may take a long time to answer. They may violate, they may fulfill. There's just a range of things that are taking place around the nation, lawsuits popping up over this, right? And so I would like parents to put it in writing, ask if they can be contracted out. Can we do an addendum meeting to meet school closure that like I said, I also have an episode of this, speaking to a special education lawyer, and anyone that wants to reach out to me, definitely I'll get that information more so to you, because there's a lot when it comes to special education. But that's what you can do immediately. Now, if you suspected that your child was going to qualify for an IEP or 504, and they were like in the middle of being assessed, that doesn't mean that stops. There is a timeline for which things are supposed to take place within a reasonable time, and that's not 6 months to a year.
Right.
Because then that leaves your child at a 6 month to a year deficit. And what we do know is that if your child is beyond a 6 months deficit, it's very hard for your child to bridge that deficit gap. So this goes out to all parents. You do not want your child to be behind 6 months or more. So these things you need to do with immediacy. And if they don't treat you with urgency, take it externally. Take it out of there. Right.
And I think that's so important for parents to know, because a lot of times they don't know that they can ask questions. Like, if you're not sure, you have the right to ask questions. This comment about everything should be in writing every time, everything recorded. That is so true, because you can have a conversation and there can be educators and principals around the table, and everybody can say, oh no, we never talked about that, or you never put that request into me, or you never said that. So definitely when it's in writing, you protect yourself, you protect your child, and you have to think like that when you go into IEP meetings. And even though I'm an educator, when I go for my child, I'm there as a parent. So I could care less about what anyone has to say, or what other things are in place. At the end of the day, what's the best thing for my child? Because that's what needs to take place. And a lot of parents don't know that you have that right to say what is best for your child, even if they're learning at home, even if they haven't received those services. Never take it as, oh, we don't have enough teachers, or we don't have enough resources, or we don't have enough of whatever they're saying to you. Like, continue to go back. And it can be tiresome. I've been there. It can be frustrating. But at the end of the day, they legally, like Christina said, legally are supposed to do things to help your child. So
and you can look at, and you guys can look up FAPE, which is FAPE, and IDEA, right? And that's for specifically, look at the protocols and the roles and responsibilities around districts that are supposed to be providing that type of education for your student. 504 students are federal. Section 504 protects students, people with disabilities. You can look that up, right? And so that's what those accommodations are meant to do. That Section 504 plan is what I call it, because the federal Section 504 is meant to protect students with disabilities. The IEP, really, parents, you got a lot of power in that IEP. Okay? Make sure, like we're saying, you put things in writing. Even if you get a phone call, you follow up with an email per our conversation. Okay? Because trust me, there are things that'll be said, but then, like my sister Isis says, when you come back to saying, well, you told me, you don't have any proof, and it's your word against theirs, right? Instead of you being the person that has to have the burden of proof on you and your household, the burden of proof is supposed to be on the school if they provided services and supports according to federal guidelines, rules, and regulations. So when you have everything that you've done as far as the protocol, and they haven't, then guess what? That's a violation, not on you, on them. But that does need to be in writing. Do need to have a time frame of when you put in things. Like, I like to use things as a time stamp and date, right? And you may not be able to go to a physical location. So having a certified mailed letter, or having an email, that still counts as a legal documented timetable, right? Of when you requested these things, but then if they are not responded to, then that is a burden of proof needs to be on the district of how they provided them. And they need to show how they were allocating their funding that they received for your child, because they do receive extra funding to educate students with special needs.
Absolutely. And when she says certified, that piece is important, because the certified mail, someone has to sign. So when they sign that they received it, that's your proof that it was in their hands. And whether or not they opened it, it's not on you, but it's proof that what you sent got to the person that you were sending it to. And I want parents and families to hear. All right, I paused again because StreamYard did their little circle around. I know stop talking when they start circling me. But I want parents to and families to hear that you have options, right?
Oh, so
saying send back. We're not saying stay at home. But I personally have decided that I'm going to homeschool my 9-year-olds because I noticed that there's a deficit. I noticed
Yes.
that there's a deficit, especially in math. So I decided, okay, we're going to homeschool. So now I want you to talk to the parents that want to homeschool and what might that look like for them. What might that?
So first, I want to challenge your mentalities, parents. If you believe that the traditional education system is going to go back to what you know as the norm, you're going to have to really be uncomfortable with understanding it's already been disrupted. Okay. I believe that because the traditional education system as we have known it historically today in 2020 has already been disrupted, and you don't get a K through 12 redo. You really need to be knowing, how can I help my child thrive? What's that going to
Right.
look like? Right.
Right.
Um, is that going to mean I homeschool? Well, I do, and I use a public charter school, to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because there are some hybrid things that we do, like my kids get to go through enrichment programs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or am I gonna look for a pod, right? What's this pod uh schooling about, right? That's just basically a little network or group of parents that are come together and share responsibilities. We used to call it homeschool networking or co-oping.
Right.
um you know or am I going to continue to subscribe, enroll my child in the district and trust them with it? I
Mm-hmm.
have a problem with that. The reason why I have a problem with that is because I haven't heard any consensus around speaking to parents around the fact that the district knows what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to challenge you, if the district, which is the traditional education system,
Mm-hmm.
can't give you an answer on how they're going to educate your child, how that's a red flag,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If here school is about to start in a week and they're just winging it or playing it by ear,
Mm-hmm.
that's a red flag.
Right.
My next thought-provoking statement is this, and a lot of Black parents are going to relate to what I'm saying. If we have to consistently teach the educators in the traditional system how to teach our children and how to engage us, we could just teach our kids ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
What sense does it make, with utilizing the system and constantly battling teaching them how to teach your kid?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you, Sister Isis? Um, Basically, I believe that there is so much technological in this technological era that is out there. Learn Everywhere, I believe, is one of them. Khan Academy. I remember my friend Corey saying TED Education.
Right.
You know, I used to use a Becca. Some parents, me being faith based, I love the Becca.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some parents might not be able to afford a Becca, so you might want to look at something a little bit less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It ranges on what your needs are. I do not put a cookie cutter recipe on this and
Right.
tell parents exactly what to do.
Right.
Some, look, there are public charter schools in California, and our children are still able to enroll.
Mm-hmm.
Margaret Fortune has Fortune schools,
Mm-hmm.
and kids are still able to enroll. Those schools are specifically designed to bridge the African American achievement gap. I've been sending parents to look at that, right? There's so much of a wealth of knowledge of people like in my dear sister Isis right here, who has fundamentals of learning and does math enrichment or reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
That literally you could meet those state standards. Make sure you know what your standards are per state. Like, I know what my standards are in California, and what by year, by grade. What
Mm-hmm.
are the children supposed to be doing, whether it's with physical education, English language arts, math, science, history, right? And electives, right? So I educate be at my house, my 9-year-old and my 14-year-old, that looks different.
Right.
It looks different because I have the elementary schooler and I have a high schooler,
Right.
right?
Right.
And this ain't my first rodeo. I have a 26-year-old and a 22-year-old, one who graduated from a virtual academy, the other one I homeschooled all the way till 10th grade,
Mhm.
right? And so really designing a plan that works with your child's modality of learning.
Mhm.
That means you need to know what is their area of strengths, what is their area of weaknesses.
Mhm.
I see that Kayla's saying look into curriculum swap groups. Yes,
Mhm.
right? You know, you're more equipped as the parent to
Mhm.
know what suits your child best.
Right. And one
When
thing that I did too with my daughters is I told them, hey, sit down and write me a list of the things that you want to learn about. Right.
right.
What do you want to learn about? And on that list, of course, they had Black history, they had Spanish, they had cooking, they had dance, they had reading, writing, math. So now that I have that list, now I can sit down and say, okay, you want to learn Spanish? Let me put you on Duolingo for
Mhm.
15 minutes, a day. But I think it's important for us to not only ask those necessary questions if we're deciding to homeschool, but even if you're sending your children back to school, write their teacher a letter and say, hey, these are the things that my child has listed that they want to learn about. How can that fit into your curriculum? And that's something that I did with my families when I taught in the classroom. I would send home a list and say, hey, what does Aiden like to learn about? All right, he likes to learn about dinosaur, or he likes dinosaurs, Lego, and what was it back then? And fidget spinners. So then I took that and I was like, okay, let me tie that into my curriculum because that's what my students like. So this is not just a homeschool thing. Even if your child is going back into the building, you have the right as the parent to say, hey, my child really likes to cook. How can you tie that into what you're already teaching them about? And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to do as parents and families going back into school. We have to let them know who our children are. Like you can't just
Right.
sit there with a backpack and supplies and say, now,
Right.
no,
And
it is.
this whole situation, I got to be honest, um, has really shown the lack of relational capacity that districts have had with parents and children, right? And so I don't want to hear any whole child approaches. You need to be considering the whole family.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, seriously, this
Yeah.
is what keeps parents up at night, making them say, forget it, right? And I agree with them. Do what's best for your child. You don't want to wait and the uniform system of education, it might not be serving you well anyway. It hasn't for a long time, right? My son's a kinesthetic learner, and he has to be moving every 15-20 minutes.
Right.
He cannot be in an environment that is not conducive for his learning, which would require that he sit down for 7 hours or 6 hours or 5 hours and do a task. The way that his brain works and functions is moving and learning as he moves,
Right.
and then putting into practice what he learned so he won't forget it, right? And so it's like I, need parents to understand that if you are waiting for this relational capacity to build up where you get responded to, and you're wondering why people aren't answering and what is all that about, that's not really somewhere fit to educate your child and take it from a whole approach of we care about this child in this family. And you probably are noticing it more now. And there's a lot of deals being made in the background, which parents don't understand, collective bargaining units, unions, and negotiations, and all of that. What does that have to do with your kid learning and thriving, right? You want it to be about your child receiving a quality, high quality education, not about all this malarkey over here.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying really a good time to shift your mentality and your norms and do what the very best thing that you can for your kid. Do we know how long schools are going to be closed? Absolutely not. Because, the school closures can be for this first session and then reevaluate it. And, let's bring in 6 or 7 kids at a time. And then your child still's not going to fit into that, right? So start creating a new set of norms in your own life, but you can't bring that traditional way of educating into your home and think that your child's going to adapt to that very well. Mm-hmm. You're really going to hurt yourself.
Right. And what you said, and one piece of what you said is a nice segue into the next part of what I want to talk about. And it's really focusing on the whole child, the whole family, the whole community. Right? I think people are picking up this whole child approach and running with it and not really recognizing that you can't talk about my child without talking about her siblings, me, her grandmother, where she lives, where she shops, where she plays. And a lot of conversations that I'm hearing around or with individuals that no longer have children in the K through 12 system are like, oh, well, this isn't my fight. My kids
my
kids are this, my kids are that. Like I don't have any part in this. So I want you to speak to not only how the community can be involved, but how is this a community's issue and collective responsibility to make sure that children are educated effectively and properly before this time, but especially during this time?
So, I would have to really push back on those people that are saying that their kids are already grown and out of the house and they've done their job. Are you still a member of that community? Are you a homeowner in that community? Are you employed in that community? Do you have family? Do you care about the generational success of the very community that your children might have graduated out of, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a homeowner, then guess what? Your taxes are going to fund that local education system. Mm-hmm. And if that local education system, school, government school, district school is not performing very well, it brings the value of the whole community down, right? Right. So education is very important. Student success and beyond the financial part of it, what is your collective mentality about seeing the next generation do better than the last? Are you a member of a local church, mm-hmm. right? What is your spiritual responsibility, mm-hmm. moral responsibility on making sure that even if this person is not doing well as a parent, you know what, I'm gonna lift them up. What happened to serving orphans and widows and the fatherless, right? I have a really big issue when I hear people saying, that it's the parents' fault and they didn't even lift a finger to help, right? Right. It's something's wrong with that kid and they didn't even lift a finger to help. It can be as small as you reading a book, mm-hmm. to a group of kids, mm-hmm. to as big as I'm going to make paper bag lunches. And now I'm talking old school, but some of y'all will understand what I'm saying. But do not complain. The societal and communal issues, don't complain about them if you are with a position of I've extracted myself, I just drive to my house every day. Right. You can't do that. You have to be an active participant in the very community that you live in. This requires tribal collective mentality. If you're a church member in that community, you really need to be looking at ways that you can innovatively and creatively serve the children, the families, and the parents. If there's flyers going out about church events, that same type of flyer can go out. How can we help you, through this education tough time or process? My church just had a meeting last night. The pastor's wife, we had about 100 plus people on the call. right? And she's like, look, we want to meet the needs of all the parents and educators and families in our congregation. That's across the state. That's not just in the very community, but
Right.
yes, your moral collective obligation is to make sure that these children thrive, and we all play a part and a role in that. Some of the societal ills that we see later, reflected in the fact that they weren't educated over here. They're impacting you and you see them, but you didn't realize it started over here and
Right.
it carried into adulthood. So just because your kids got out, don't mean that those kids are going to get out. And you should looking at ways that you could help them. Read a book. Can I help with anything? There's single parents out there, right? I don't want to assume that every family looks a certain way.
Right.
You
Right.
can there's little things you can help with. I'm a grandma, so I get it, right?
Grandmas, let me tell you this. All my grandmas out there, take your
Yes,
grandkids, take them, please. Take them
yes,
for about 2-3 days, and we'll come back and pick them up. I think every grandparent right now should sign a contract that says, I will take my grandchildren for at least 72 hours each month.
you're not about to have a red hat society. What is it? The red and purple hats? You're not gonna have them at my door. Like, you just did this to me, and it's cute and it's okay. But look, we're in tough times nationally. Grandmas,
Come
big
on.
mama, abuelita, tia, whoever you are, we need you, right? That's real. We need you to come out of retirement. My dad said that I gotta come out of retirement. Yeah, but we don't retire as parents and grandparents. We're gonna always do that. But we need you to embrace an extra kid. Okay. Some of you guys are doing that very well.
Right.
Thank you. Some of you guys don't know where you can get in, where you fit in. Look, we get it. Just do something.
Do what you
We
can.
need
Right.
And so, I hope that answered your question.
No, definitely, absolutely, it did. And everything that you said today, and catch the replay if you can, because it's needed and necessary. Because a lot of times, all the time, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
Sometimes they don't know the questions to ask. They don't know that they can push back. And I'm talking about families. A lot of times they don't know that they can push back. They don't know who to reach out to. So we're both just sitting down and saying, hey, we are a resource for you guys. If you don't know, come to us. And if we don't know, we know somebody that knows somebody a lot of times, and we can get you the answers. But what Christina has said time and time again, and every time I talk to her, is really about children thriving, right? We're not talking about, we're moving away from this paycheck to paycheck mentality. And that's not, and the paycheck to paycheck mentality for me is not just finances, right? It's your energy, it's your information, it's your expertise. And we have to be tired of, okay, my child is going to get a little bit, oh, and then they're going to get a little bit more later and a little bit more. No, we have to stop accepting that narrative about ourselves, about our community, about our children. And that's really why I focus so much on math, especially for Black children, because we have so many, like when I look at reading resources, I'm just like up to my eyeballs in resources for reading. But as soon as I look at math, it's like the same 5 or 7 programs, 5 to 7 pamphlets or links. And it's just like children start to feel like, Black children especially, start to feel like I can't do this as young as 5 years old. They start to feel like, oh, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at counting. But it's just like, you are math. Like if you are math as a Black child, because so much of numbers and the number sense and all those different things originated. It's a part of who you are. And I'm gonna get off my soapbox on that piece. But
but you're right, because there's a cultural congruence to that, right? So when kids see you and you represent what they look like, they're able to really see themselves represented in what you're saying.
Right.
They see you in a role of leadership and decision making in their lives, as an educator, and they thrive, right? There is something that has to be said and looked at as far as offering your children culturally congruent, ethnically matched providers, people that look like them. There are plenty of them out there. Us, I'm not an educator, even though I teach, but it's just a little bit different.
Right.
But I gotta say something about this because it's heavy on my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see another equity plan, okay, talking about
goodness,
parent involvement, student engagement, when your goal is to engage and involve those people at a very slow rate.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about 1% of action, really, really true action. I don't want to see these highly deodorized words in those equity plans saying trauma-based when you're the trauma, okay? Stop traumatizing the students and the families and then saying, oh, we can't go back and engage them, and the parents don't want to be involved because you're their source of trauma, right? Every time they try to reach out to get that relational capacity going, and I want to know, what is the metric for involvement, for parent involvement? Does that mean signing their children up? Does that mean I'm going to have coffee with the principal every Friday when I'm at work? Does that mean, I'm going to make it to the parent-teacher conferences? What is your metric for parent involvement, and how are you deciding? And I'm specifically talking to traditional education platforms or districts. How are you deciding whether one parent is doing better in involvement and the other isn't? Because I don't see, really, I don't see a cultural perspective to parent involvement, but people claim that there is a racial component. When I worked in education, all the parents either was involved or they wasn't, or to a certain degree, right?
Right.
But when you are either the low amount or the high amount, you could be targeted. So I don't want to hear that. And then that student engagement, what is that looking like? Well, how are you engaging the kids? How are you engaging the families that you complain about are not engaged? Or is that really pushing some of your funding around equity? So enough with that, right? Enough with the lower performing funds, enough with the equity funds. Educate the children with a mode of excellence, and there won't be these other problems. And that's all I'm asking for: high quality, equitable public education.
Exactly. And I think that might be too much. That's too much to ask for, Christina. That is way too much to require.
Well, if you want to keep somebody oppressed, then yeah. But if you want to do it well, you will.
Right. So talking about oppression, equity is lending itself to the closing of the show when we really move into the Dear Black Child moment, right? So this is a time where I give the guests that are visiting the show the opportunity to speak specifically to the children that data shows are underserved, under-resourced, and they don't get the access to high quality education that other children get. So I want you to take the final moments that you're here with me today and to give your Dear Black Child moment. What does that look like and sound like?
Straight from my heart, dear Black child, you are uniquely, wonderfully created. I don't know what your name is, but there is only one you. Nobody else throughout all of time was created with the gifts, the talents, the beauty that you possess. Nothing is wasted, not your hair color, not your eye color, not your skin color. You are unique and wonderfully made. And don't ever let anybody tell you anything else. Know who you are. And I want you to know that you are strong, you are powerful, you can do this, and be ready, because people may not understand your beauty in your hair and your skin and your eye color, but as long as you understand it, then you can conquer and you will be victorious all throughout your life. I love you, Black child.
Amazing. Amazing. And I say every time that I do this piece of it, because I want it to live. Like, I want it to live on YouTube. And I want it to live. I don't know how long Facebook is gonna be around, but I have confidence in YouTube. I think YouTube gonna be around. But I want it to
be. They gonna bring MySpace back, girl. No,
MySpace was a joy when they clicked on my page and my song playing. So Facebook need to get with it on that. But I want that to live somewhere, for my children, my children's children, any Black child, because like I say a lot of times, I go on YouTube at least 3-4 times a week just to hear Dr. Maya Angelou tell me how amazing I am. So
that's right.
That, I want this to live there for them, because there will be times where they don't hear that. But they may not hear that they're loved, that they're special, that they're beautiful. So I want them to be able to hear that here.
Yes.
So I thank you. I thank you for your presence on today. I
No problem.
For being here just to be a light for so many parents and families that may have felt like they didn't know what direction to take. Her information has been scrolling on the bottom of the page during the show. So please follow her on Twitter if you want to stay connected with her, if you want to learn more just about what your rights are as parents and families, and what you can do to make sure that your children thrive. Stay connected with her. Once again, sis, I love you. I
love you too out there. I hope y'all I have a cooler day than me. It's 115 yesterday.
I know. I saw that yesterday. You all posted it. I was like, woo. I'm not going to complain about the South Carolina humidity, because it's not.
Right.
So, yeah. So thank you. And I'll be in touch. We'll be talking soon.
All right. Love you guys. Be safe, be well, and thrive. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So thank you guys so much for joining me on the Engage Educator show today. I hope that some of your questions were answered. Of course, stay connected with me. You can go on my Facebook page, inbox me, send me an email, visit my website, isispan.com. And I am here as a resource for you guys. I've been here since the very beginning of the pandemic, even before the pandemic. Just doing live lessons, giving you guys some feedback and some tools and strategies that you guys can use. So stay connected with me. Everybody, stay safe, stay well, and I will see you on our next episode. Have a great day.